After decades of pretending, will she risk losing her family by exposing the lies that have always protected their favorite daughter? Essence Audio presents The Perfect Child versus the Scapegoat. A story of fractured loyalty, inherited silence, and what happens when the woman who's always carried the blame finally decides she has had enough. Because family is supposed to love you more than anyone. So what happens when telling the truth means becoming the problem they can no longer ignore? The house smells like lemon cleaner before Claire even opens the door. She is 52 years old, and her body knows this place before her mind has a chance to argue. The sharp, artificial brightness of the scent cuts through the damp salt air clinging to her clothes. She pauses on the porch, one hand resting on the handle, and waits for her breath to settle. It doesn't. Her chest tightens the way it always does here, like her lungs are bracing for something they remember, even if she doesn't want to. The porch light flickers. Not off, not steady, just enough to make her notice. She tells herself it's nothing. Old wiring, salt corrosion, the way coastal houses age faster than people admit. Still, her shoulders inch upward, a reflex older than thought. Her knees ache. Her jaw tightens. She knows these sensations well. The stiffness that flares under stress. The keyed-up vigilance that will wake her somewhere around 3 a.m, with her heart racing and no clear reason why. Behind her, the ocean moves in the dark. She can hear it, a low, insistent rhythm. It's the waves stacking and breaking. The tide has been coming in all afternoon. She felt it when she parked, that subtle pressure shift in the air, like weather holding its breath. She steps inside. Everything looks the same. The pale walls, the framed beach prints that have never been moved, the side table by the door with a neat stack of mail no one ever seems to open. Even the air feels controlled, scrubbed clean of anything sharp. Citrus over something sour, polish over truth.
"Claire," her father says, appearing from the kitchen with a careful smile. Not wide, not warm. Careful. He smells like coffee and aftershave, a combination that lands somewhere between comfort and warning. "You made it," he says.
She nods, sets her bag down gently, like sound might matter here, like too much presence could ripple outward and disturb something fragile. Traffic wasn't bad, she says. It's the right answer. Neutral. Safe. The kind of sentence that never asks for more. He steps aside to let her come fully into the room. For a moment they stand there facing each other, a small pocket of unspoken things humming between them. He doesn't hug her. She doesn't move closer. This is how they've learned to be. From down the hall comes laughter. Bright, easy, unapologetic. Claire feels it before she names it. The old, familiar contraction inside her chest. Emily? Of course she's already here and settled in, her voice moving through the house like it belongs to the walls themselves. The sound curves around corners effortlessly, filling space without asking permission.
Her father glances toward the hallway, then back at Claire. "Your sister got in early, but we're glad you finally made it," he says, as if this is information, not a law of nature. Claire nods again. She feels herself shrinking without deciding to. A subtle inward folding, learned early and practiced often. Make room. Don't crowd. Don't compete with the light.
She walks down the hall toward the living room, each step measured. The floorboards creak in the same places they always have. She remembers learning where to step so she wouldn't be noticed when she was younger, slipping past doorways like a question no one wanted to answer.
Emily is sitting on the couch, legs tucked beneath her, a mug cradled in her hands. She looks exactly right. Hair falling the way it always seems to fall. Smile ready before Claire even enters the room.
There she is, Emily says, rising halfway, already warm, already generous. You made it. As if there had ever been doubt.
They hug, or something like it. Emily's arms are loose, confident. Claire's are careful, brief. She inhales the scent of Emily's perfume, something light, expensive, familiar, the kind of scent people compliment.
How was the drive? Emily asks, pulling back just enough to look at her, eyes bright with what reads as interest.
Fine, Claire says quietly. Emily nods, satisfied. Good. I told Dad the weather was going to turn. You always catch the storms. It's said lightly, but sarcastically. Claire smiles because that's what you do when something is almost an accusation but not quite sharp enough to object to. She takes the chair across from Emily instead of the couch. Distance feels safer. The ocean murmurs outside the windows, louder now, like it's leaning closer. They talk about small things. The drive, the grocery store, the neighbor who finally replaced their fence. Claire answers in pieces, careful not to offer too much, careful not to sound tired, even though she is. Over time, she's learned how to sound fine, even when her body isn't. Her joints ache more as the minutes pass, stiffness creeping up her spine, settling into her shoulders. Emily tells a story about work, about someone who didn't pull their weight, about how exhausting it is to always be the one holding things together. She tells it well. There's humor. There's restraint. There's just enough self-deprecation to make everyone comfortable.
Claire listens. She always does. At some point, the conversation drifts, as it always does, back toward the past. A casual mention of a summer trip. A laugh about something that went wrong. Emily waves her hand. You remember how dramatic that was. Claire's stomach tightens.
That's not exactly how it happened, she says, lightly, instinctively softening the edges before the thought is even fully formed. Emily's smile doesn't fade. If anything, it grows kinder. Oh, Claire, you always remember things so intensely.
There it is. Not unkind, not cruel, just definitive.
Her father chuckles from the kitchen. You know how your sister is, he says, as if explaining the weather. Claire feels the familiar heat behind her eyes, the urge, even now in her 50s, to retreat, to apologize for a reaction she hasn't even had yet. She swallows it down. Her chest feels tight, her breath shallow. Outside, thunder rolls low and distant, too far away to matter yet. She looks at Emily, really looks, at how easily the moment passes for her, how smoothly the room settles back into comfort once Claire's version of things has been brushed aside. Something in her shifts, not breaking, not yet, just a subtle, almost imperceptible pressure change, like the ocean pulling back before a wave. She doesn't say anything more. Not now. But her body knows, and it doesn't relax. Soon, it's time for dinner, and thankfully, it passes without incident. Words are exchanged, plates are cleared, the television hums low in the background like a sedative no one asked for. Claire speaks when spoken to. She smiles when expected. She feels the familiar ache spreading through her shoulders, down her spine, as if her body is holding something her mouth refuses to carry. By the time she climbs the stairs, the house feels heavier. The lemon scent lingers. It's sharper upstairs, clinging to the hallway like a warning disguised as cleanliness. She changes into an old t-shirt, brushes her teeth, moves through the rituals carefully, as though being gentle might keep the night from noticing her. She lies down and listens to the ocean breathing beyond the walls. The porch light throws a thin, unsteady glow through the curtains, flickering just enough to register. Her thoughts loop. What she didn't say, what she almost said, what she swallowed like she always does. She knows this feeling. The pressure behind the eyes, the tightness beneath the ribs, the sense that something has been set in motion, whether she's ready or not. She closes her eyes anyway. Her body does not follow. Claire suddenly wakes up at 3:07 a.m. She knows the time without looking. Her body always chooses the same hour, as if there's an internal alarm set decades ago that never learned how to turn itself off. The room is dark, the house quiet, except for the ocean pushing harder against the shore. Wind rattles the window lightly, testing it. Her heart is already racing, breath shallow, chest tight like it's been cinched with a cord. She lies still, staring at the ceiling she's stared at since she was a child, counting the familiar cracks in the plaster she memorized long ago. The air smells faintly of lemon-scented cleaner even up here, as if the scent has seeped into the walls. She presses her feet into the mattress, grounding herself the way she's learned to do over the years. "You're safe," she tells herself. "You can leave whenever you want." Her body doesn't answer. She listens to the storm build. Rain begins to tap against the roof, tentative at first, then steadier, as though it's made a decision. Each clap of distant thunder rolls through her ribcage, vibrating something loose. She exhales slowly, forcing her breath to deepen, one hand resting over her sternum where the ache always gathers. Eventually, exhaustion wins, or maybe her body just powers down enough to let her drift off to sleep. Morning comes gray and heavy. The storm hasn't passed. It's settled in, low clouds pressing down on the house, rain misting sideways across the windows. Claire moves through the kitchen quietly, aware of every sound she makes. Her joints feel stiff, especially her hands, fingers aching as she grips the mug. Coffee helps, but not enough. Emily is already there, fresh, alert, hair pulled back neatly, scrolling on her phone like she slept 8 uninterrupted hours. "Looks like you had a rough night," Emily says, glancing up, her voice softened with sympathy. Claire shrugs. "I didn't sleep well." Emily smiles. "You never do well with weather." It's not a question. It's a conclusion already reached. Their father sits at the table, newspaper open, glasses low on his nose. "The storm's supposed to clear by afternoon," he says. "Nothing to worry about, Claire." "Nothing to worry about." Claire blinks. She looks down at her hands, still wrapped around the warm mug. When did they decide that? She thinks. That she was worried. She hasn't said she's anxious. She hasn't said anything at all. She woke up. That was it. But already, the explanation has been written for her. A neat one. A familiar one. One that turns ordinary tiredness into fragility. She lets it go. She always does. It's easier than correcting them. Easier than asking how they got there in the first place. There were many small things they had decided about her over the years. That she was sensitive. That she worried too much. That she didn't handle things well. None of them were things she had ever said about herself. The irony was that she loved storms. She loved the way thunder split the air open. Loved rain hard enough to drown out conversations. Sure, it could be scary, but as a girl, she used to sit cross-legged by the window, counting the seconds between lightning and sound,
feeling steadier with each one. But that version of her never made it into the family story. Somewhere along the way, her calm became nervousness. Her quiet became weakness. Her stillness became something that needed to be managed. And once a version of you is agreed upon by enough people, it doesn't matter how untrue it is. It becomes the one that gets repeated. As Claire stood there reminiscing, Emily brought boxes down from the hall closet. No one announces it as a moment. Emily just decides it's time. "Since we're all here," she says lightly, already kneeling on the floor, tugging the first cardboard box toward her. "Might as well go through some of this stuff." Claire's stomach tightens. Her body reacts faster than her mind again. A flare of tension through her shoulders, her jaw setting. She tells herself it's just nostalgia. Just old things. Just pictures. Emily lifts the lid and laughs. "Oh my God! Remember these?" Photo albums emerge, thick and heavy, their plastic covers yellowed at the edges. Emily flips one open without ceremony, already narrating. "This was the summer we went up the coast. Remember the tiny motel?" Claire leans forward despite herself. She sees Emily at the center of the first photo, sun-kissed and smiling, hair wild with wind, their parents on either side, arms around her shoulders. Claire scans the edges automatically, her eyes trained to look for herself. She's not there. "Oh, you must have been taking the picture," Emily says breezily, as if reading her thoughts. Claire nods. She doesn't remember taking it. She remembers standing nearby, though. She remembers the heat of the pavement, the smell of salt and sunscreen. She remembers watching. They keep flipping pages. Graduations, holidays, beach days. Emily is always centered, always framed just right. Claire appears occasionally, half a face at the edge, a shoulder cropped, a blur behind someone else's smile. "Look at you," Emily says once, pointing to a photo where Claire's barely visible, her head cut off at the top. "You hated pictures." Claire opens her mouth, then closes it. She didn't hate pictures. She hated being told to stand somewhere else. She hated being rushed. She hated being told she was blocking the light. She watches Emily's hands turn the pages, smooth and confident, the story unfolding exactly as it always has. Their father peers over occasionally, chuckling softly. "That was a good year," he says. Claire feels something press against her ribs, a quiet, accumulating weight. Later, she escapes. The rain has softened to mist by the time she walks down to the boardwalk, pulling her jacket tighter around her. The wood is slick beneath her shoes, darkened by water, the ocean churning a few yards away. She breathes in deeply, salt air filling her lungs, sharp and honest in a way the house never is. She spots her childhood friend leaning against the railing, hair pulled back, posture relaxed, as if she belongs exactly where she is. They smile at each other, and something in Claire loosens immediately. "You look tired," her friend says gently. Claire laughs, the sound surprising her. "I didn't sleep." "Yeah," her friend says, nodding, as if this makes perfect sense. That tracks. They walk slowly, shoulders nearly touching, the mist settling into Claire's hair. For a while, they don't talk. They don't need to. Finally, Claire says, "Do you remember that trip up the coast? The motel?" Her friend doesn't hesitate. "Yeah, you twisted your ankle on the boardwalk. You were limping all week." Claire stops walking. "I was?" she asks. Her friend looks at her, steady and unconfused. "Yeah, you sat out a lot because it hurt.
Emily kept saying you were being dramatic.
Claire feels the words land in her body, solid and undeniable. Heat rises behind her eyes, but this time it's different. This time it's relief. I thought I made that up, she says quietly.
Her friend shakes her head. You didn't.
They stand there, the ocean roaring louder now, wind tugging at their jackets. Claire's chest expands with a breath that feels fuller than any she's taken since she arrived. Back at the house, the storm clouds begin to thicken again. The porch light flickers as she steps inside, more erratic now, casting brief shadows across the walls. The air smells freshly cleaned, citrus layered thick, as if someone's been scrubbing in her absence.
Emily looks up from the table. Everything okay? She asks, sounding concerned, but looking uninterested.
Claire meets her gaze. For the first time, she doesn't immediately answer. The moment stretches longer than it should. Claire feels the weight of Emily's questions settle between them, unanswered, heavy with everything she doesn't know how to say yet. Somewhere deeper in the house, a floorboard creaks, the sound sharp in the too clean quiet. Claire turns away first, moving past the table, past the familiar rooms that seem to hold their breath as she does. Whatever she was carrying with her from the morning doesn't leave when the door closes behind her. It follows her through the hours, gathering pressure, waiting. By late afternoon, the storm arrives for real.
The sky darkens without drama at first, clouds stacking low and heavy over the water, the horizon blurring until sea and sky look like they're dissolving into each other. The wind picks up, pushing against the house in steady, insistent breaths. Windows rattle faintly. The porch light flickers again, faster now, as if it's running out of patience.
Claire stands at the kitchen sink, hands wrapped around a mug she's reheated twice without drinking. Her shoulders ache. Her jaw feels locked. There's a tight band of pressure across her chest that hasn't loosened since morning, not even after the walk, not even after hearing her friend say, without hesitation, "You didn't make that up." That certainty is still with her. It hasn't faded. If anything, it's made everything sharper. Emily sits at the table, scrolling on her phone, occasionally laughing at something she reads. Their father moves between the counter and the stove, clinging to tasks the way he always does when the air gets heavy. The television murmurs from the other room, some harmless program meant to fill silence without asking questions. Looks like it's going to be a bad one, he says, peering out the window. Emily glances up. They always say that, she replies lightly. It'll pass. Something in Claire tightens at the word always. Thunder rolls closer this time, deep and resonant, vibrating the floor beneath her feet. She sets the mug down carefully, afraid her hands might shake if she doesn't. Actually, she says before she can stop herself, they don't always say that. Both of them look at her. It's subtle. Just a pause, a slight recalibration of attention. Emily tilts her head. What do you mean? Claire feels her pulse in her throat. This is the moment she usually backs away, makes a joke, waves it off. She can feel the old reflex rising. Don't do this. Don't make it awkward. Don't ruin the mood. Her body refuses. I mean, she says slowly, choosing her words with the care of someone crossing unstable ground. Sometimes things don't just pass. Emily smiles, soft and reassuring, the way she does when she's about to smooth something over. Claire, it's just weather. Their father clears his throat. Let's not get worked up, he says. It's been a long couple of days. Worked up.
The phrase lands in her chest like a familiar weight. She feels the tightness deepen, breath skimming shallow again. The room feels smaller suddenly, walls pressing in, the air thick with unsaid things. She thinks of the photo albums, of standing at the edge of frames, of being told year after year that what she felt was too much, too intense, too wrong. "I'm not worked up," she says. Emily's eyebrows lift just a fraction as she say, "Okay." That one word carries so much with it: patience, disbelief, dismissal, wrapped in something that sounds like concern. Thunder cracks loud and sudden, close enough to make Emily flinch. Rain slams against the windows now, no longer tentative, no longer polite. Claire exhales, a shaky sound she doesn't bother to hide. "There's something I need to say," she says, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounds. "And I need you to let me finish." Emily laughs softly. "Claire." "Please," Claire says. The word hangs there. Even the television seems to lower its volume, as if the house itself is listening. Their father shifts uncomfortably. "Maybe this isn't the best time?" "It is for me," Claire replies. Her hands are trembling now. She presses them flat against the counter, grounding herself in the cool surface, feeling the solidness of it beneath her palms. "I've spent my whole life being told that I remember things wrong," she says, "that I'm too sensitive, that I overreact, and every time I tried to say something different, it got laughed off or explained away." Emily's smile tightens. "No one's saying that now." Claire looks at her, really looks, at the practiced calm, the easy authority with which Emily occupies the room. "You just did," Claire says quietly. Silence drops heavy and immediate. Emily's expression shifts, not anger, not exactly, something closer to disbelief. "That's not fair." "There it is," Claire says, and feels a strange steadiness settle into her bones. "That's the part I'm talking about. As soon as I say how something felt to me, it becomes about whether it's fair to you." Rain hammers the roof. The porch light flickers violently, casting uneven shadows across the kitchen walls. Their father rubs a hand over his face. "Claire, your sister's always tried to include you. You know that." Claire turns to him. "Did she?" she asks. The question isn't sharp. It isn't accusatory. It's honest in a way that leaves no room to retreat. He hesitates, eyes drifting past her to the window, to the rain streaking down the glass. This is familiar territory for him. The pause, the quiet retreat, the moment where silence has always done the work of an answer. Claire has seen this look before, in other conversations, other years. It's the look of someone who stayed on the edges long enough to believe that not noticing was the same as not being responsible. He opens his mouth, then closes it, looks down at the floor. "I didn't know," he says finally. "If things were that bad, I would have—" "No," Claire interrupts gently. "You didn't want to know?" The words land with a dull thud. Not explosive, just heavy. Emily stands now, arms crossed, defensive energy finally breaking through the polish. "This is ridiculous," she says. "You're rewriting everything." Claire feels the old fear flare. This is it. This is where they turn away. Her chest tightens, breath catching for a moment. She breathes through it. "I'm not rewriting anything," she says. "I'm just stopping myself from editing it to make you comfortable." Another crack of thunder splits the air, so loud it rattles the cabinets. The power flickers, lights dimming for a heartbeat before returning. No one speaks. Claire feels the truth still vibrating in her chest, the echo of it moving through her body like the aftershock of a wave. Her hands have stopped shaking. She notices that first. The steadiness surprises her. "I'm not asking you to agree with me," she says, voice quieter now. "I'm asking you to stop telling me I didn't live my own life." Emily's face flushes. "I don't know why you're doing this now." Claire swallows. "Because I won't carry it anymore." Not the silence, not the doubt, not the version of me you all seem more comfortable with. Her voice doesn't rise, but it sharpens. The restraint that's held it in place for years finally slips. "I was there," Claire yells. "I was always there." She gestures toward the hallway, toward the framed photographs they passed earlier. "Every birthday, every holiday, every summer, I'm the one holding the camera in half of those pictures. And in the others, I'm cropped out, or turned away, or told to step back because my hair was too wild, or I looked tired, or it just wasn't the right moment." Emily shifts, color rising in her cheeks. "That's not... I deserve to be in them." Claire cuts in, the words coming faster now. Not as an afterthought. Not as the one fixing the angle or retaking the shot so everyone else looks good. "I deserve to be seen the same way you were, without conditions." The room feels suddenly smaller, the air tight and charged. "I didn't imagine that," she says. "I lived it, and I'm done pretending it was nothing just because it was easier for you." Silence crashes down hard. No one moves. No one corrects her. For the first time, the story they've all relied on has no one left to carry it. The storm roars outside, relentless, unapologetic. The family's version of peace lies in pieces on the kitchen floor. Not shattered, but cracked enough that it can't pretend to be whole. No one rushes to fix it, and for the first time, Claire doesn't try to either. The storm doesn't end cleanly. It drags itself along the coastline through the night, rain easing and then returning in sudden sharp bursts, wind circling the house as if it hasn't decided whether it's finished. Claire lies awake, staring into the dark, listening to the structure around her respond, a creak here, a groan there, as though the house itself is adjusting to what's been said inside it. Her body waits for panic, for regret, for the familiar urge to get up, knock on doors, soften what she named, repackage the truth into something easier to digest. None of it comes. Instead, there's a slow, heavy ache spreading beneath her ribs, grief settling into the space fear used to occupy. It's not sharp. It's not dramatic. It's the grief of finally understanding something she spent decades trying not to see. She presses a hand to her chest and breathes. Down the hall, a door opens. Footsteps pause. A floorboard creaks. The ordinary sounds of night feel louder now, stripped of their old disguises. No one comes to her room. No one checks in. The absence lands clearly, without interpretation. She sleeps in fragments, drifting and waking, her body still alert, but no longer braced for attack. When morning finally arrives, it does so quietly, gray light slipping through the curtains like it doesn't want to interrupt. The kitchen smells like coffee and damp air. Her father stands at the sink, hands braced on the counter, staring out toward the ocean as if it holds instructions. His shoulders look rounded, his posture less certain than she remembers. For the first time, she notices how much of his life has been spent angled away from conflict. "Coffee's fresh," he says,
not turning around.
She pours herself a cup and sits at the table. The chair feels solid beneath her, maybe even grounding. They don't speak right away. The quiet stretches, thick but not hostile, just full. "I didn't sleep much," he says finally.
"Neither did I."
He nods, as if this confirms something he's been circling. "I kept thinking, maybe I missed things."
Claire watches the steam curl upward from her mug. "You didn't miss them," she says gently. "You avoided them." The words sit between them. He doesn't flinch.
"I thought keeping the peace was the same as protecting you," he says after a moment.
She lets herself really feel that sentence before responding. "It wasn't protection," she says. "It was silence." He swallows, eyes still fixed on the window. "I didn't know what else to do." "I know," Claire says, and she means it. Knowing doesn't undo the damage, but it explains it. That matters. Emily doesn't come downstairs until much later. When she does, she moves through the kitchen with forced brightness, opening cabinets louder than necessary, commenting on the weather like it's neutral ground. She avoids Claire's eyes, then overcorrects, offering a tight smile that doesn't quite land. "So," Emily says, reaching for a mug. "Looks like the storm passed." Claire nods. "Looks like it." The conversation goes nowhere else, and for once, Claire doesn't try to steer it. The rest of the morning unfolds carefully. Everyone behaving, no one repairing. The illusion of normalcy hangs in the air, fragile and incomplete. By afternoon, Claire needs space. She walks down to the shore alone, shoes dangling from her fingers, sand cool and damp beneath her feet. The beach is littered with what the storm left behind: driftwood tangled in seaweed, shells rearranged, the shoreline redrawn. The ocean looks calmer now, surface smoothed over, but its power is unmistakable. She breathes deeply, salt air filling her lungs in a way that feels honest. Near the waterline, she bends and picks up a shell. It's intact, smooth, unbroken. She turns it over in her palm, surprised by the solidity of it. The storm didn't destroy everything. Some things held. Something inside her loosens at that thought. When she returns to the house, the porch light is steady. She notices immediately. The small, unexpected relief of that steadiness moves through her body like permission. Not a welcome, not a warning, just light. Packing doesn't take long. Her bag waits by the door, zipped and final. Emily stands in the hallway watching her, arms folded loosely, uncertainty flickering where confidence usually lives. "I don't know what you want from me," Emily says. Claire considers her. The old instinct to explain, to soften, to make it easier for everyone hums briefly, then passes. "I don't want anything," she says. "I just won't disappear anymore." Emily looks away. The drive out of town is quiet, but Claire keeps her eyes forward, hands relaxed on the wheel. Her body is tired, tender, but no longer clenched. She isn't replaying the conversation. She isn't rehearsing apologies. She's listening to her breath, and for the first time in a long time, it feels like it belongs to her. The road pulls her forward. It curves along the coastline, gray water flashing between breaks in the trees. The ocean steady now, but vast, unconcerned with what's been rearranged behind her. Claire drives with the window cracked open, salt air cutting through the last traces of citrus that seem to cling to her clothes. Each mile puts a little more space between her body and the house, and she feels it. Not relief exactly, but clarity. She notices what's different first in her breath. It moves deeper now, fuller, settling lower in her chest instead of hovering near her throat. Her shoulders aren't braced. Her jaw isn't locked. There's still an ache there, a tenderness she doesn't rush to fix, but the constant vigilance has softened. At a stoplight near the edge of town, she reaches into her pocket and finds the shell. She'd slipped it in without thinking, a small, instinctive act, like her body knew before she did that she'd want proof later. She turns it over in her fingers, smooth and intact, its pale surface catching the light. It didn't survive because it was untouched. It survived because it held. The light turns green. She keeps driving. She thinks about Emily, not with the sharp edge she expected, but with something closer to distance. She sees her sister as she is, not as the symbol she's carried for so long. Polished, believed, protected by a story that requires someone else to absorb the cracks. She understands now that she was never meant to win inside that story, and she doesn't need to. Her phone buzzes once on the seat beside her. She glances at it at the next pullout, a message from her father. "I hope you got home safe." She stares at the words for a moment, feeling what they bring up. Affection, disappointment, a familiar urge to translate them into something more. An apology, an acknowledgement, a promise. She won't do that anymore. She types back, "I did. Nothing else. It feels complete." The rest of the drive passes quietly. No replaying the conversation. No mental cross-examination. Just the steady hum of tires on pavement. The ocean appearing and disappearing like a companion that doesn't need to be managed. When she reaches home, the sky is clearing. She parks, sits for a moment with the engine off, listening to the quiet. Her house feels different when she steps inside. Not dramatic, just honest. The air smells like nothing in particular. No cover, no disguise. She sets her bag down, kicks off her shoes, moves through the room slowly, noticing how her body responds. There's tiredness. Yes, there's grief, still unfolding in layers she knows she'll meet later. But there's also something steady beneath it. She pours a glass of wine and drinks it at the counter, feeling it move through her, grounding her in the present moment. She places the shell on the windowsill, where the light can reach it. That night, when she goes to bed, she doesn't brace herself. Sleep doesn't come instantly, it never does. But when she wakes, briefly, quietly, her heart isn't racing. The old alarm doesn't blare. She turns onto her side and lets herself rest. In the days that follow, the memory of the confrontation doesn't fade, but it changes shape. It becomes a line she crossed, a boundary she stood behind. She understands now that being believed is not something she can force, and it's not something she owes anyone else in exchange for belonging. Her reality doesn't need consensus to be real. What she said mattered because she said it. But what she didn't say matters more because she didn't apologize for existing. She didn't shrink to restore comfort. She didn't disappear to keep the peace. The ocean keeps moving, storms forming and dissolving on their own schedule. The world doesn't rearrange itself around her truth. She does, and that is enough. With that, our story comes to an end. The perfect child versus the scapegoat. If parts of this story felt familiar, you're not imagining that. Many women learn early how to become easy to live with,
how to soften their memories, second-guess their reactions, and carry the weight of other people's comfort as if it were their responsibility. Over time, that kind of silence doesn't just live in the mind. It settles into the body, into sleep that never fully restores, into tight breath, aching joints, and the quiet dread that arrives before family gatherings, phone calls, or certain conversations. This story isn't saying that telling the truth fixes everything. Often, it doesn't. What it does is give something back to you: your internal steadiness, your self-trust, your right to believe your own experience without needing permission. If you've ever been labeled too sensitive, dramatic, or the problem for naming what hurt, let this be a reminder. Being believed is not a luxury, it's a lifeline. And choosing yourself is not betrayal. It's survival. Sometimes the bravest thing is simply refusing to disappear anymore. If something in you softened, steadied, or exhaled while listening, consider staying with that feeling. Choose another story. Not to distract yourself from what surfaced, but to keep honoring it, one breath at a time.